Have you ever wanted to take a blast to the past and play Tron again? I know you guys played a VR-style Tron game. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic. You're talking about Q-Bike.
Q-Bike, that's what I was thinking of. Well, this isn't in VR, but it's a super cool game called Hyperun. Hey guys, this is Brax.
And this is Moriarty, and I believe this is Hyperun.
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 Hyperun. Hyperun.
Hyperion.
Hyperion. I like that the best.
All right, so we're playing Hyperion.
Hyperion. So basically, this is a game that is very retro arcade style like in what it does. It's a racer, and like I just said, it reminds me of Tron. It also reminded me a little bit of like F-Zero, if you've ever played that before. And the one thing that I want to say is going to stick out very quickly is that this game is fast. I mean super fast. That's why immediately I kind of fell in love with it, to be honest. I'm a fan of racing games, and this is kind of, like I said, it's an arcade style racer. It's not going to be simulation. It's not going to be like Forza or Gran Turismo, anything like that. But it's super colorful. It's super vibrant. Lots of things going on. And there are so many boosters that it's super duper fast. It kind of reminded me of like those temple run games where your mind is already trying to think about the next thing to avoid or next obstacle before you get there. It's like that, except a lot more cool.
It does kind of remind me of a temple run thing now that you mention it, because you're obviously not really racing against other people. You're racing against the clock.
Yes, and that is the biggest complaint that I have about it. All you're going for is max speed and basically time trials. So the only thing you're doing this for is the leaderboards, I guess, for bragging rights. You do get upgrades, like you can get a drop if you make it to 100 miles per hour that will give you a boost at the beginning of your next run that boosts you automatically to 200. Then you can get a drop that will boost you automatically to 300, and so on and so forth. But you're never playing other people. And for me, that's highly disappointing, because I think that could be a huge addition to the game if it had multiplayer. And I don't understand why it doesn't, to be honest.
That's probably a question for another time, because multiplayer is like, you know, one of those big bads when it comes to indie games. They have a lot of trouble with it. So I understand why an indie game doesn't have multiplayer, but I agree that every game should have multiplayer. I think multiplayer is kind of the way you do it. So this game seems to have like some skill flick trick things and other than that, you're basically just doing time trials.
Basically, and the tricks are just for points, like little bonuses. The tricks are cool. Double flips, double back flips, double front flips, etc., etc. There's also customization that you can do, so you can get these little in-game currency. It's not microtransactions, thankfully, but it does take a while, in my experience, to get enough currency to buy the stuff you want. Like, you can get different models of your racer. The most expensive one was crazy expensive, though, like 99,000. I don't know how many hours you would have to put in to unlock that one, but other than that, you can paint your vehicle, whatever that might be. You know, you can paint the wheels, the tires, the pipes, etc., etc. So the customization gives it another extra little layer, I guess, but it's not something that would make me want to come back and play it a lot more, to be completely honest. Overall, the strongest part of this game is the gameplay and how fun it actually is. Once you get to like 200 or 300 miles per hour, you're actually going to be moving around in your seat trying to guess, is this next turn going to be to the left? Is it going to be to the right? But you always have to be a step ahead, and every time you hit one of these boosters, it just gets more and more intense. And I was even grunting and making noises by the end of it because it was so involving. It's a very involving experience to have to keep up with everything that's going on screen, and I did enjoy that part. Unfortunately for me, the gameplay itself isn't going to be enough for me to come back and play like hours and hours, because it's not doing all that other stuff. Like, the customization is threadbare, there isn't any multiplayer, there isn't really any sense of progress other than I want to try to get higher on the leaderboard. And that's why I did compare it to an arcade game, because that's exactly what it reminds me of when you go into an arcade and you really don't feel like you have a reason to play other than to try to beat that guy's high score that played it, you know, could have been last week for all you know. But you know, there was a sense of pride with that back in the 80s and 90s. You know what I mean?
I get it, yeah. I feel like, here's the thing with this game, with this style of game that's always kind of annoyed me, and it's the reason why I don't really play them a lot. And that is that you can very easily just create a bot, a simple bot, that clicks left, right, whatever at a specific time and max out the entire level, because there is nothing that changes. These maps aren't procedurally generated, right?
That's what I couldn't decide, because it seemed like I was going through the same map every time, but then on my third run, once I had eclipsed the 300 miles per hour, or kilometers per hour, once I had eclipsed the 300 kilometers per hour mark, the map did change, and it wasn't the exact same run every time. Either that, or I was mistakenly thinking that because of how much faster everything was going, but I'm pretty sure that it does change somewhat. But it is, you don't get to select the track, so it's very similar every time, you know what I mean?
And it's not procedurally generated, which means it doesn't change on the fly. Like every time you play it, it's not going to be different. So you are playing the same map over and over again, which again, that's my problem. You can create a very simple keybind bot that will sit there and press buttons at a specific time and max out the level, max out the game. No, that's not fun, and yeah, it's kind of cheating, but at the same time, any game that you can win and be at the top of the leaderboards by creating a cheap bot that's not even really a bot, it's just you typing in what times to press buttons, this is not the type of game for me. Like, when you're talking a racing game, you can't really do that because there's going to be someone else there who will bump you randomly, which means now your bot is useless. You know what I mean? You have to pay attention to the environment, which includes other players, other creatures. This is more of a temple run style of game simply because of the fact that you don't have to pay attention.
Well, to be clear, the maps are procedurally generated. All I was saying was they feel similar every time that you race through them, and that made it a little more boring. But at the core of every racing game, in my opinion, is competition. If it's not competitive, then I don't really like racing games. And if people can bot, and I think they have, looking at the leaderboards when I was thumbing through those after I finished playing, there are some astronomical scores out there. And I know that I only did 10 or 12 runs, and I'm a new player at this game, so the odds are that I won't be in the millions like they were. But at the same time, I'm thinking that is a huge jump to make, from 300 kilometers per hour to some of these huge numbers that I was seeing. So I think some people have already done what you're talking about just to be at the top of the leaderboard. That would not surprise me in the least. And that is disappointing because, like I said, I like my racers to be competitive. And with this, there's no PvP, there's no racing against other players. That takes away competition. The ability for people to just create a bot takes away competition. So what you're left with really is just a game that you could play for a few times, because it is kind of fun in the same way that a game like Temple Run is. But, that's something I'm going to play on my cell phone, not on my PC.
Well, speaking of cell phone games, this is a $10 title, so it is not a $1 cell phone game. Would you pay $10 for what it is now?
No, I would not pay $10 for it. I think right now you would be looking at $5 or less. If they wanted to place it somewhere in that range, that would be fair. Not saying that I would even pay $5 for it, but I think that would be fair based upon the amount of work that you can tell they put into it and how fun the actual gameplay is. That's the only saving grace, is I did enjoy actually racing. But it's still not worth $10. No way, Jose. But keep in mind that if you like high-paced, fast energy, really fast games, then you might actually enjoy it. If you do think you might, check it out on Steam. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to watch another one of those videos in your face right now. This has been Brax.
And this is Moriarty.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.